Robyn Brown was crying, and for once, the tears didn't look rehearsed. They didn't look like the familiar deflection fans had grown used to over the years. They looked raw, shaken, almost panicked, as if something inside her had cracked in a way she hadn't expected. When she admitted she had considered hiring a lawyer against her own husband, it sent a quiet shock through the room, because this wasn't just another emotional confession. This was a threat, a line she had never crossed before. 15 years of loyalty, 15 years of compliance, 15 years of being the woman who never challenged Kody Brown publicly, and suddenly she was talking about legal action. That alone should have been the moment viewers stood up and applauded. But then the story kept going, and that applause died quickly. Because what looked like courage at first began to look a lot like fear, and not fear for what was right, but fear for what was hers. Robyn didn't just cry about Kody becoming someone she didn't recognize. She cried because, for the first time, the system she helped build almost turned on her. And that realization was terrifying. When Robyn said she called him out hard, she wanted that phrase to land like a mic drop. She wanted viewers to hear strength, defiance, moral clarity. She wanted this to be her moment of transformation. But the truth hiding underneath was far messier. Kody wasn't being called out for hurting Meri, or for years of financial manipulation, or for emotionally abandoning wives and children. He was being called out because he tried to move money and property in a way that could have legally endangered Robyn. That's the part that matters, and that's the part Robyn didn't say out loud. But the facts said it for her. Coyote Pass wasn't just land. It was leverage. It was power. It was the last financial knot tying this fractured family together. And when Kody tried to loosen that knot without everyone's consent, Robyn suddenly remembered something very important. Her name was on that property too. For years, Robyn had been protected by alignment. As long as she stayed aligned with Kody, she benefited. She lived in the biggest house. She had security. She had access. She had favor. The rules worked for her, so she never questioned them. But Coyote Pass was different. This wasn't Meri's house equity being quietly absorbed. This wasn't Janelle being told to make do. This wasn't Christine being emotionally dismissed. This was Robyn's legal stake, Robyn's exposure, Robyn's money. And the moment Kody hinted that he might push a sale without full consent, something shifted. The tears came. The fear came. The backbone appeared. Not because Robyn suddenly believed in fairness, but because she understood consequences. The land in Arizona was supposed to be a dream. 14 acres meant to represent unity, legacy, a shared future. Instead, it became the family's financial autopsy. The ownership structure alone told the story before anyone spoke a word. Kody's name was everywhere. Robyn's name appeared more than Meri's and Janelle's. Christine had already signed away her portion for $10, a detail that still stings when repeated out loud. From day one, the power imbalance was baked into the paperwork. And Robyn knew it. She always knew it. She understood property law well enough to protect herself when it mattered, which makes her years of silence even louder in hindsight. When a buyer finally appeared in 2024, things should have been simple.
Janelle signed.
Meri signed.
Kody signed.
Robyn didn't.
She didn't say no.
She didn't say yes. She disappeared. 6 weeks passed. No communication. No updates. Just silence. And silence, in this family, is never accidental. It's a strategy. Right as the contract was about to expire, Robyn reappeared with conditions. Not suggestions. Not concerns. Conditions. She wanted non-disclosure agreements signed by Meri and Janelle, documents that would legally prevent them from talking about the sale or pursuing any additional money they believed they were owed. This wasn't about peace. It was about control. And Janelle felt it immediately. She described it as a power play, because that's exactly what it was. Robyn had waited until the moment of maximum pressure, when everyone stood to lose, and then she applied the squeeze. At the same time, and this is the detail that changes everything, Kody was having a completely different conversation behind the scenes. While Robyn was demanding silence from Meri, Kody was exploring ways to move forward without Meri's consent altogether. a backdoor deal, a forced outcome, a shortcut. And here's where Robyn's narrative tries to split into two versions of herself, the woman who stopped Kody and the woman who silenced Meri. She wants credit for the first while hoping viewers forget the second. But you can't separate them. They happen simultaneously. They are part of the same strategy, the same mindset, the same priority. Protect Robyn and Kody, no matter who gets hurt. Robyn says she refused Kody's plan because it was wrong, because it wasn't fair, because it wasn't the man she married. But her own actions betray that story. If fairness was the issue, why demand NDAs? If ethics mattered, why trade silence for equal splits? If manipulation was unacceptable, why introduce legal documents designed specifically to suppress accountability? The logic collapses under its own weight. What actually happened becomes clear when you stop listening to the tears and start following the risk. If Kody forced a sale without proper consent, lawsuits would follow. Those lawsuits would name every owner, including Robyn. That's when she said no. That's when she found her voice. That's when Kody suddenly became unrecognizable. This wasn't a moral awakening. It was a legal calculation. Robyn didn't want to be sued. She didn't want her money tied up in court. She didn't want to pay attorneys to clean up Kody's mess. So she blocked his move. And then, having protected herself, she pivoted, using NDAs to protect the narrative and the money already gained. Equal shares, yes, but at a cost. Silence. Compliance. No future claims. No public truth. That was the deal. And when Meri refused to take it, everything fell apart. The contract expired. The buyer walked away. And suddenly Robyn wasn't the hero anymore. She was the reason the deal died. And that's when the tears came back, not because Robyn had done something wrong, but because her plan hadn't worked. Because for the first time, someone said no to her. Meri refused to be silenced again. And that refusal shattered the illusion Robyn had carefully maintained for over a decade, that she could benefit from the system without ever being held accountable for it. By the time Robyn sat on that tell-all couch, crying about calling Kody out hard, she wasn't just processing a fight. She was processing a realization. The man she believed would always protect her had nearly sacrificed her too. The system she helped enforce had nearly turned on her. And the control she thought she had wasn't absolute. That fear is real. Those tears are real. But what they don't erase is everything that came before and everything that came after. Because stopping one unethical move doesn't undo years of benefiting from others. And standing up once, for yourself, doesn't rewrite history. It only exposes where your line truly is. And Robyn Brown's line was never about right or wrong. It was about risk. Once the initial shock of Robyn calling Kody out hard wore off, something far more uncomfortable settled in, because the more she talked, the more the cracks in her story began to show. She wanted viewers to focus on the moment she said no, but what she didn't want them to do was rewind the tape and ask why she had been so comfortable saying yes for so long. The truth is, Robyn didn't just benefit from Kody's financial manipulation of the family, she was protected by it. For years, the system worked exactly as designed. Money flowed toward her household. Stability followed her. Favor followed her. And every time another wife suffered under that system, Robyn stayed quiet, convincing herself that silence was neutrality, that compliance was peace. But silence is never neutral when you're standing on the side of power, and that's the reality this Coyote Pass situation dragged into the light. When Robyn introduced the non-disclosure agreements, she framed them as a way to keep the family from fighting publicly, but that explanation collapses the moment you look at who the NDAs actually served. They didn't protect Janelle. They didn't protect Meri. They didn't protect the children. They protected Robyn and Kody from exposure. They protected the narrative that money had always been handled fairly, that favoritism didn't exist, that Robyn's lifestyle wasn't built on the sacrifices of other women. NDAs aren't about peace when they're demanded at the last second under threat of losing everything. They're about leverage. And Robyn had waited until the leverage was strongest before playing her hand. Janelle sensed it immediately. She described the timing as manipulative, the move as calculated, and the feeling as deeply unsettling. 6 weeks of silence followed by fully drafted legal documents is not indecision, it's strategy. Robyn knew exactly what she was doing, and that's what makes her later claims of innocence ring hollow. She wasn't confused. She wasn't overwhelmed. She was deliberate. And Mary saw through it too. Mary, who had already lost her marriage, her status, and her financial security within this family, recognized the NDAs for what they were. An attempt to silence her permanently. Not just about Coyote Pass, but about everything that came before it. Because Coyote Pass wasn't the beginning of the financial manipulation. It was the end of it. The house in Vegas. The equity that disappeared. The mansion Robyn moved into while Mary rented. Those were the questions no one wanted answered out loud. And as long as Mary stayed quiet, the story held. But once she started talking, once she refused to sign away her voice, the entire narrative threatened to collapse. And that's why the NDAs mattered so much to Robyn. They weren't a formality. They were a muzzle. Here's the part Robyn doesn't want acknowledged. If she truly believed in fairness, she could have signed the sale papers without conditions. She could have let everyone receive their share and trusted that transparency would speak for itself. But she didn't. She attached strings. She demanded silence as payment for decency. And that reveals something far more damning than any emotional outburst on a couch ever could. It reveals intent. It shows that Robyn understood exactly how damaging the truth could be if it was allowed to surface. What makes this even more unsettling is the contradiction in Robyn's own testimony. On one hand, she presents herself as someone so morally opposed to manipulation that she confronted her husband and considered legal action. On the other hand, she admits she didn't warn Mary about the backdoor deal discussions because she couldn't go against her husband. That single sentence destroys the entire heroic framing. You cannot claim to stand against unethical behavior while actively withholding information from the person being targeted by it. That isn't integrity. That's selective courage. Robyn didn't protect Mary. She protected her marriage. She protected her position. She protected her assets. And when those priorities conflicted, Mary was expendable. Again. This is the same pattern viewers have watched for years, now simply stripped of its usual cover. When Kody's behavior harmed other wives, Robyn rationalized it. When it benefited her, she accepted it. When it threatened her, she resisted it. The pattern never changes. Only the target does. As the NDA demand unraveled the deal, something else began to crumble alongside it. Robyn's carefully constructed self-image. She has always presented herself as the emotional one, the peacemaker, the woman who just wants everyone to get along. But peacemakers don't ambush people with legal documents. Peacemakers don't weaponize silence. Peacemakers don't hold fairness hostage in exchange for compliance. What Robyn displayed wasn't emotional sensitivity, it was strategic restraint. She waited. She calculated. And when the moment was right, she moved. Mary's refusal to sign the NDAs wasn't just a business decision. It was an act of defiance. For the first time in years, Mary chose herself over keeping the peace. She chose truth over access. And that choice had consequences. The sale collapsed. The buyer walked. The money disappeared. And suddenly Robyn's attempt to control the outcome backfired spectacularly. Instead of protecting the family's future, she exposed the fracture running through it. That's when the blame subtly shifted. The narrative began to suggest that Mary was difficult, uncooperative, unwilling to move on. But the reality is much simpler and much uglier. Mary refused to be silenced again. And in a family built on compliance, refusal is seen as betrayal. Robyn's tears on the tell-all weren't just about Kody. They were about losing control of a story she had helped suppress for years. Because once the NDAs were exposed, viewers began asking the questions Robyn hoped would never be asked. Why did she need silence so badly? What was she afraid would come out? Where exactly did Mary's house money go? Why was Robyn the only wife living in a mansion while others struggled? These aren't emotional questions. They're financial ones. And financial questions don't disappear just because someone cries on camera. Robyn's story hinges on the idea that Kody changed, that he became someone she didn't recognize. But that version of events requires viewers to forget everything they've already seen. Kody didn't suddenly become manipulative. He didn't suddenly prioritize himself. He didn't suddenly use money as control. That behavior has been consistent for decades. The only new element in this story is that Robyn finally felt it herself. And instead of recognizing that reality, instead of acknowledging that the other wives had been living in this space for years, she reframed it as a personal betrayal, not a systemic one. This is where the script turns from exposure to indictment. Because Robyn wasn't just a bystander in this family's financial dynamics. She was an active participant. She understood legal ownership. She understood leverage. She understood timing. And she used all of it when it suited her. That knowledge removes any remaining doubt about her role. She wasn't manipulated into demanding NDAs. She chose to do it. She wasn't unaware of how unfair the system was. She benefited from it. And she wasn't blindsided by Kody's behavior. She just never expected it to be turned toward her. By the end of part 2, one thing becomes impossible to ignore. Robyn's conflict with Kody wasn't about morality. It was about control.
Control of money.
By the time the Coyote Pass deal collapsed, the story was no longer just about land or money. It was about power, and more specifically, who actually had it and who only thought they did. Kody had spent years presenting himself as the ultimate decision-maker, the man who could move pieces around the board whenever he wanted, convincing his wives that resistance was pointless because he always had the upper hand. But when the details of his supposed authority were examined under real-world law instead of his own rhetoric, the illusion cracked. The idea that he could force a sale and distribute money at his convenience wasn't strength. It was either ignorance or a lie. And Robyn knew it. She knew enough about joint ownership to recognize that if Kody pushed this too far, the consequences wouldn't just land on Meri or Janelle. They would land on her. In Arizona, property law doesn't care about family hierarchies or emotional narratives. Joint owners generally must agree to sell, and when they don't, the only legal path forward is a partition action, an expensive, time-consuming court process that strips everyone of control and places decisions in a judge's hands. It's not quick, it's not clean, and it doesn't guarantee the outcome the loudest person wants. If Kody truly believed he could bypass consent and dictate payouts, he was either grossly misinformed or intentionally misleading the women he'd controlled for decades. Either way, Robyn saw the danger immediately. A forced or improper sale could lead to lawsuits, frozen proceeds, and years of legal entanglement. And every name on that property would be dragged into it. This is the moment Robyn wants credit for, the moment she points to as proof of her integrity. But integrity isn't about recognizing risk. It's about how you respond to it. Robyn didn't say no because she suddenly believed in fairness for Meri. She said no because she didn't want her money tied up in court or her name attached to legal wrongdoing. That distinction matters. Because the moment she secured her own protection, she didn't dismantle the system that made the risk possible. She simply adjusted her position within it. What makes this particularly revealing is how Robyn describes Kody during this confrontation. She says he transformed into someone she didn't recognize, as if this behavior emerged out of nowhere, as if manipulation and financial control weren't already woven into the fabric of this family. That framing isn't accidental. It allows Robyn to cast herself as shocked rather than complicit, blindsided rather than informed. It creates distance between who she was before this moment and who she claims to be now. But that distance is imaginary. The behavior she describes is the same behavior Meri and Janelle experienced for years. The only difference is that now, Robyn was on the receiving end. And that realization shook her in a way nothing else ever had. Because Robyn had built her entire identity around being the favored wife, the loyal one, the partner who understood Kody better than anyone else. She believed that loyalty guaranteed safety, that compliance guaranteed protection. But Coyote Pass exposed the truth. Kody's loyalty doesn't extend beyond himself. When his interests conflict with anyone else's, even Robyn's, he will choose himself every time. That's the moment she couldn't unsee. That's why she cried. Not because she was morally outraged, but because she felt replaceable for the first time. Yet even in that realization, Robyn didn't fully break away. She didn't warn Mary about the backdoor conversations. She didn't align herself with the women who had been harmed. She didn't confront the broader pattern of abuse. Instead, she compartmentalized. She resisted one specific action while leaving the rest of the system intact. That's not rebellion. That's boundary management. And it allowed her to maintain her position without burning bridges. The tell-all made this contradiction impossible to ignore. When asked why she didn't give Mary a heads up about Kody's willingness to proceed without her consent, Robyn admitted she couldn't go against her husband. That admission strips away the last layer of heroism. Because if you truly believe something is wrong, you don't stay silent to protect the person doing it. Silence in that moment isn't neutrality, it's complicity. Robyn chose her marriage over Mary's rights, just as she always had. This is where the narrative shifts from disappointment to inevitability. Robyn's actions aren't inconsistent. They're perfectly consistent with who she's always been. She stands up when her interests are threatened and stands down when they're not. She understands the law when it protects her and ignores ethics when they don't. She claims shock at Kody's behavior while benefiting from it for years. There's no transformation here, only exposure. As the legal realities sank in, another uncomfortable truth emerged. Robyn was never as powerless as she liked to appear. She understood ownership. She understood leverage. She understood timing. That knowledge proves she wasn't blindly following Kody. She was navigating alongside him. And when she demanded NDAs, she wasn't confused about their purpose. She knew exactly what they would do. Silence, contain, protect. That level of awareness removes the possibility of innocence. This wasn't survival by accident. It was survival by design. What's especially striking is how Robyn frames her refusal as bravery while dismissing the years of quiet compliance that preceded it. Standing up once, under very specific circumstances, doesn't erase a pattern of enabling. It highlights it, because if she could assert herself here, she could have done so before. She could have objected when Mary's house equity funded her lifestyle. She could have pushed for equal treatment when property ownership was structured. She could have spoken up when Kody emotionally abandoned his wives and children. She didn't. She waited until the threat was personal. And that's why this moment, which Robyn hoped would redefine her, actually redefines her in the opposite direction. It confirms that her morality is situational, that her boundaries exist only when crossed personally, that her empathy stops where her comfort begins. These are qualities of a hero or a victim. They're qualities of someone who knows the system is broken but chooses to work it as long as it works for her. As the dust settled, Robyn didn't leave. She didn't demand accountability. She didn't change the terms of her relationship. She stayed. She fought for the marriage. She framed Kody as emotionally unsafe while remaining emotionally invested. And that choice speaks louder than anything she said on camera. Because recognizing manipulation and staying anyway isn't growth, it's adaptation. By the end of part 3, one truth stands out above all others. Robyn didn't discover who Kody was during the Coyote Pass dispute. She discovered who he would be when she stopped serving his interests. And instead of walking away from that reality, she adjusted herself to survive within it. That choice didn't free her. It trapped her deeper. And the consequences of that choice were only just beginning. By the time everything finally unraveled, there was no grand explosion, no single moment where the truth arrived like a lightning strike. Instead, it seeped in slowly, almost cruelly, through silences, contradictions, and the uncomfortable realization that every justification had an expiration date. Part 4 is where the story stops pretending it's about misunderstanding and finally admits what it's always been about: control, self-preservation, and the cost of staying too long in a system that only rewards obedience. Kody, by this point, was no longer trying to hide the shift. The man who once spoke about unity and shared sacrifice now talked almost exclusively about loyalty, respect, and betrayal. Those words became weapons, vague enough to be aimed at anyone, sharp enough to wound deeply. Anyone who questioned him wasn't just disagreeing, they were disloyal. Anyone who asked for fairness wasn't advocating for themselves, they were attacking the family. And in that framework, Robyn's role became even more complicated. She wasn't just the wife who stayed. She was the proof Kody used to argue that the system still worked. If Robyn could remain, then the problem wasn't him. It was everyone